Today let's talk about Swedish police. But first let's talk about all this stuff. I mean, look at this. Ugh. So yeah, we had, as you guys know from the previous vlogs, we had a couple of days of snowfall. And now it's been above freezing for 2 days and even raining. It's raining a little bit right now. And that just creates the worst kind of conditions on the road. Like all this slushy, wet, icy snow. Ugh. It just... don't matter how good your winter tires are, your car is just being pushed in all directions. And the snow is so heavy that, you know, if you want to shovel it, it's back-breaking work. And snow machines that throw the snow to the side for you get clogged up, and yeah, just one of those things you're gonna have to deal with when you live in Sweden. Anyway, let's get to the subject of today, the police. I deal with the Swedish police both in my private life, you know, when you're out in traffic and get stopped, or you get a parking ticket or that kind of stuff. And then I also deal with the Swedish police at work. Now, I've got a lot of new subscribers since last time I explained this, so I'll explain it again. I work in a youth prison. In America they would call it juvenile detention, and in Holland they would call it a jeugdgevangenis. I work with people under the age of 22. Everything between 10 and 22 that are, you know, the worst criminals, murderers, arsonists, and so forth. Like any crime you can think of, and they'll end up at my work. I work night shifts, so they're usually sleeping when I'm dealing with them, but I've also worked for day shifts for 4 years. Now, if you're working with criminals, you're also going to be working with the police. And so that's what I'm basing all my knowledge of Swedish police on. Just my personal life, the times I happened to interact with them, and what I see at work. And yeah, I can tell you the differences between American police and Dutch police and Swedish police. Just because, you know, I've interacted with all of those. So, where do we start? I want to start with their uniforms. Like, something that I realized when I moved to Sweden is that their uniforms are a lot more military. They look more like they mean business. Their tool belt is a lot fuller than what they had in Holland, and they just look like, you know, we're not here to joke around, we're here to do a job. And I like that. They look like they have authority, but at the same time, while being dressed like that, 90% of the time, they're very good people. I have not met a bad Swedish police officer yet. But yeah, they dress the part. Like sometimes with the Dutch uniforms, they just look very formal. Yeah, the formal uniforms of the Dutch police, I don't really get it. Like they look like businessmen. But the Swedish police look like they're actually here to do a job. And I like that, I appreciate that. Now, I say policemen, but like with everything else in Sweden, police have a healthy mix of male and female people before performing this job, and that's a good thing. No matter if I was dealing with a male police or a female police, they always got the job done. This is like, forget about driving the car, this is difficult to walk on this stuff. It's just, come on. Hi everybody, I'm just interrupting myself here for a second. Look at this. See this? This means that more than 40% of you aren't subscribed. And you know, there's two really important things why you should subscribe. One, you won't miss any of my videos. Like, YouTube doesn't show you all my videos if you aren't subscribed. So if you like watching my channel but aren't subscribed yet, there is a 100% chance that you will miss videos that I make. Now the second reason is Lihao. Do you guys remember? Lihao will reveal her face on the channel once we get to 1,000 subscribers. So you get to see her face, get to hear her real name, and from then on we will always see Lihao. Alright, so subscribe and let's continue with the rest of this video. Now, what I consider the biggest difference between Dutch and Swedish police is their availability. There is just a lot less police here in Sweden than there is in Holland. Like, if I were to drive the 20 kilometers from home to work in Holland, I would always see a police car. There's always a police car. But here in Sweden you can go days, you can go weeks without seeing a police car. It's just because there's so few of them. Now, I'm not sure about the fact I'm about to tell you. This is something I heard from people a few years ago. But the province where I live at, there's only 5 police cars. 5! That's not a lot. The province is just as big as an entire province in Holland. Like, can you imagine the province of Utrecht with only 5 police cars? That is what it kind of looks and feels like here in Sweden. So because there's so few of them, that means that they won't always come for small things. They have a lot to do over a big area and they have far to drive to get there. And yeah, they usually only show up for bigger things. But it feels like that's all that's needed here in Sweden. The area where I live, it just doesn't feel like the police is needed that often. Especially on the land, in the forest, in nature where I live. We don't need police that often. And you know, that's fine. But it also means that when you do need them, it's gonna take them a while to get to you. Now, what do I personally think of the police here in Sweden? I think they're fair. They're good. You know, they do their job, they're business oriented, but have no problems being friendly if you're being friendly. And you know, that's how all police should be. If I had to deal with them in my private life, they always started friendly and they remained, you know, friendly if I was friendly too. And when I became a little bit more business oriented, they became a bit more business oriented. And I've never seen them become unfair or aggressive or, you know, harsh without an actual reason to do so. So at work, when I had to deal with police at my work, because I work with criminals, the police start off a little bit less friendly because they know they're dealing with criminals already. But they aren't, you know, unfair. It's just they start off a little bit more firm, they have clear communication, and then they just tell these people what they expect. And as long as they follow what the police wants of them, then it all turns out really well. There's no problems there. Now, being a police officer here in Sweden gets paid very little money. So you know that they are doing the job because they want to. No police officer in Sweden is in it for the money. They're in it because they want to be police officer and help people and do the job. And I do believe that Sweden is like one of the least corrupt police forces in the world. You might have to Google that to make sure, but I do believe I'm correct on that. And I've never heard about any police corruption in the 10 years that I've lived in Sweden. 11 years I lived in Sweden now. The only thing I can say that's a bit of a negative with police here in Sweden is maybe sometimes they're a bit lazy. Like, there is a clear division of labor between the people at my work and the police. Like, we keep the criminals locked in, and we deal with them on a day-to-day basis. But when they become too dangerous, we do have to call the police for help. And sometimes the police are like, hey, isn't that your job? You should be dealing with these criminals. They're already locked in. We deal with the criminals on the street. You deal with the criminals in your buildings. And I understand that, but the rules and the law says when it becomes too dangerous, we need to get the police's help. And sometimes they forget that, they're misinformed, or maybe sometimes they're a bit lazy and they're just frustrated that we aren't dealing with the criminals. But you know, can't blame them for that. Who wants to run into a dangerous situation and deal with a criminal, you know? Not everybody enjoys that. And that's something I only have seen because I work the job that I do. You as a normal person just living your daily life and having a job that has to do with criminals probably wouldn't notice this. I have never heard any complaints about the police performing their jobs out between the public. Now let's get to some stories, shall we? Stories that I've had dealing with the police here in Sweden. My very first time that I had to deal with the police here in Sweden, I didn't speak Swedish that well. So I was mostly talking English and just a little bit of Swedish every once in a while. And I was stupid, I was speeding, I was driving 60 kilometers an hour where you were only allowed to drive 40 kilometers an hour. So of course the police stopped me when they saw it. And I got a ticket. Now, this police lady that stopped me, very friendly, no problems there. You know, here in Sweden the same rules apply as in everywhere in the world. If you are friendly to them, they are friendly to you. Of course there are some assholes out there, but most of the time if you're friendly to them and don't make big troubles, then they're friendly to you. The same was true for this situation. I remained friendly to this policewoman. I said yes, I was speeding, and then she said, I'm going to write you a ticket in Swedish. And back then I didn't really understand what she said, so I asked her, can you explain what that means? And she explained it, and then I got my ticket and I drove home. Now, something you should know about traffic tickets here in Sweden: they're super expensive. So much money. In Sweden, traffic tickets, so that day, for driving 20 kilometers over the limit, I had to pay 300 euros or 3,000 crowns. Yeah, that was a lot of money. And also here in Sweden, it is very, very easy to lose your driver's license. You know these stop signs? If you don't stop at one of those and the police sees it, your driver's license is gone. No, I'm not kidding. Just failing to stop at a stop sign means you lose your driver's license. Yeah, while driving around in Sweden, pay extra attention to the driving laws, the speeds and where you can and cannot park and that kind of stuff, because you don't want to pay those tickets and you don't want to pay with your driver's license either. Those tickets are so expensive, and I regularly hear that my colleagues lost a driver's license. Now, usually they can get them back within a month or something, but they just, you know, aren't able to drive for a month. And if you live in the countryside, that makes life very difficult and hard. Now, a different story. I was visiting somebody in a different city once, and I parked my car. When I got back, I had a parking ticket. Now, it turned out that I parked on one of those white crosses that sometimes are parking spots that tell you that you're not allowed to park there. And here in Sweden, police don't really give you parking tickets. They hire different companies to do that. But once different company has issued the ticket, if you then want to challenge the ticket, that still goes through the police. Now, on that occasion, I thought the parking ticket was unfair. Because the white cross I was standing on was almost gone. There was almost nothing left of it, and it was difficult to see that there was a white cross. So I challenged the ticket. I took pictures of my car, pictures of the parking spot, and then how it works is you have to pay the ticket first and then challenge it, and then after a while you get an answer. Now, luckily for me, when they saw the pictures, because when they issue a ticket they also take pictures themselves, they probably compared mine and their pictures, and they saw that the white cross was almost gone, and they agreed with me, so I got my money back, which is, you know, again, really fair. It's really good. You can actually challenge tickets and get your money back if you are right. Now, apart from that parking ticket, I have had different parking tickets as well, and yeah, those times I just realized that I was wrong and I just paid it and didn't challenge it. But it's good to know that they are quick to give parking tickets. You usually can't just like, oh, I'll park my car illegally for half an hour and then come back and not have a ticket. No, they're quick about it. Parking tickets are given really fast. And that again is because it's not the police giving the parking tickets. They hire different companies to do it, like security companies, and they deal out the parking tickets. And there's a lot more of them than there is police. So yeah, be careful where you park your car. Now another story. Of course, because I work with criminals, I park my car at work. And sometimes when these guys and girls get to go on a walk, they do dumb stuff. And on this occasion, because one of them didn't like me that day, they let the air out of my tires. And on my way home, I noticed like, hey, my car isn't driving correctly. And this was very late in the evening. This was like 12 at night. So I parked my car on the side of the road and checked out my tires, and I saw that both my front tires didn't have any air in them anymore. And yeah, at that moment, while I was checking out my car, a police car stopped next to me and asked like, hey, what's up? Why are you on the side of the road? So I told them like, hey, yeah, I work there and I guess the youth, the criminals have let the air out of my tires, and now I need to find a place to, you know, put air back into them. And they were very friendly. These were two female officers, and they, you know, they did everything they could to help. They told me where I could go to the nearest place to get air in my tires, and told me to call them if I needed any more help. So that was very nice of them. Now the last story I have for you is a little bit more rough. So at work we had a criminal that needed to be moved from our location to a different location, which meant they needed to get into a police car. The police were going to transport them. And of course they don't want that. It's for them it's not fun being in a police car. So we had to carry him to the police car. And we transport them in something we call like flying around or Superman. So me and a colleague were holding the guy's legs, and the police were holding the arms and the shoulders. Which means we're basically moving this person around like an airplane or like Superman. They're just in a position where it feels like they're flying with their belly towards the floor, and me and the police are holding on to this person at about our, you know, the height of our belly button. And, you know, me and my colleague are holding on to the legs, making sure we don't drop him, and the police are holding on to the arms, making sure not to drop them. But then the dumb criminal that he was tried to bite the police. And what was the police's reaction? They dropped him. They just, you know, if my fingers are the head and these are the arms of the person, the police were holding on to these arms, they just dropped him and he fell head first. Now, me and my colleague didn't notice this, so we kept holding on to the legs. So this person didn't have a chance to catch themselves during that fall. They just went face first into the concrete and fell. And when he started complaining and having, ow, ow, that hurt, the police just said, well, don't try to bite me, dumbass. And then after that we continued to the car without any problems. So this shows you that if you're friendly to them, they're friendly back. But if you're being an asshole to them, they will make sure you don't do that again. So yeah, I hope you found this informative. This is everything that I know about Swedish police. Now I live in a more countryside area, come to smaller cities every once in a while and deal with them a little bit more at work. But of course police is going to be different around the big cities and in other areas. But I hope you found this informative and you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye! YouTube says you might enjoy this video. Go ahead and give it a try.